There is a ghost empire operating in plain sight across the sprawling concrete of Atlanta. While the internet is distracted by rappers buying disposable iced-out chains and renting temporary mega mansions for a weekend flex, one man quietly orchestrated a stealth takeover of the city's actual infrastructure. We are talking about an underground vault of real estate so vast it literally dictates the future of entire zip codes. A shadow portfolio containing 143 affordable housing units, a 16,000 square foot mixed-use commercial block in the heart of the city, high-end recording compounds, and secret land trusts that map out an estimated $100 million territorial grip on the Hollywood of the South. But here's what makes this story absolutely insane. This isn't a Wall Street hedge fund CEO or a legacy real estate developer. This is a man who was once facing heavy federal time for stockpiling military-grade weaponry, dropping millions on exotic car fleets, and high-profile legal defense. A man who went from surviving the most dangerous, blood-soaked trap houses in Zone 1 to literally owning the deeds to the dirt they were built on. Today, we are breaking down the receipts, the shell companies, and the hyper-specific logistics of how the self-proclaimed king of the South built an unstoppable shadow empire. To comprehend the sheer scale of this $100 million stealth monopoly, you have to understand the deeply complex psychological architecture of the man who built it. Clifford Harris Jr. You don't wake up one day and decide to systematically buy back your neighborhood, block by block, unless you have a deep, almost obsessive-compulsive need for ultimate territorial control. And to understand that obsession, we have to go back to the origins. Back to Center Hill. Back to the west side of Atlanta, specifically the Bankhead Highway corridor in the late 1980s and 90s, an area known locally as Zone 1. T.I. wasn't just born into the crack era. He was engineered by it. Raised primarily by his grandparents in a neighborhood where the mortality rate for young black men felt like a war zone statistic, his psychological baseline was built on a foundation of extreme instability and constant survival. The trauma of the streets, the looming, suffocating threat of death, federal incarceration, or absolute generational poverty, creates two types of survivors. Those who escape and never look back, and those who develop a pathological need to conquer the very environment that tried to destroy them. T.I. explicitly chose the latter. He was out on those streets by his early teens, earning the moniker Rubber Band Man not because it was a catchy industry hook, but because of the literal rubber bands he used to wrap massive stacks of illicit cash generated from moving weight on the block. When he dropped the monumental album Trap Music in 2003, he didn't just invent a sonic subgenre that would dominate the global charts for the next 2 decades. He defined the brutal economics of survival. The trap wasn't just a dilapidated bando where narcotics were pushed. It was a psychological metaphor for a capitalist nightmare where the occupants owned absolutely nothing. They were renters of their own destruction, paying premiums to landlords who never had to step foot in weapon territory. This realization became the philosophical anchor for T.I.'s entire adult life. At first, the money manifested in ways that seemed fundamentally irrational to the outside world. The early flexes were legendary. We're talking about multi-million-dollar exotic car fleets featuring exact, hyper-specific models like the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren and the Bentley Mulsanne. We're talking about massively iced-out grand hustle pendants that required their own security details and an extravagant Atlanta club run where dropping $100,000 in a single night at Vision or Compound was the standard. But this wasn't just a blind flex, it was surface-level camouflage. It was psychological armor. When you come from a place where your bloodline owns zero equity, liquid cash and depreciating luxury assets become your only metric of power. You project wealth to shield yourself from the vulnerability of your past. But beneath that armor, a profound psychological shift was violently accelerated by catastrophic loss and federal heat. The 2006 murder of his closest friend and personal assistant, Philando Johnson, following a chaotic, high-powered shootout on Interstate 75 in Cincinnati, shattered any lingering illusion of invincibility. Death wasn't an abstract concept anymore. It was literally riding in the passenger seat. Then came 2007. Just hours before the BET Hip Hop Awards were set to take place in his own city, Federal agents swarmed TI in a heavily coordinated sting operation, arresting him for attempting to purchase 3 unregistered machine guns and 2 silencers in a Midtown Atlanta parking lot. He was facing a potential 10-year federal sentence.
Listen to me, fam.
Why does a multi-platinum, Grammy-winning artist with tens of millions in liquid capital feel the psychological necessity to stockpile military-grade weaponry? Because the trauma of Bankhead never leaves the nervous system. The extreme paranoia of losing everything, of being caught lacking in a city that secretly resents your ascent, demands extreme defensive measures. It wasn't a criminal flex, it was the ultimate manifestation of hood PTSD. When your baseline for safety has been corrupted since childhood, you don't trust the principal systems of society to protect you. You buy the artillery. But federal prison forces are reckoning. When T.I. sat in a cell at the Forest City Low Security Correctional Institution in Arkansas, stripped of the cars, the chains, and the guns, the transition from street-level kingpin to legitimate real estate baron was permanently solidified. In that isolation, he realized that true power isn't holding the block with a weapon, it's holding the block with a deed. You don't secure your legacy with unregistered firearms, you secure it with commercial infrastructure. Buying back Bankhead, the exact geographic coordinates where he used to risk his freedom for pocket change, wasn't just a savvy financial investment. It was an act of psychological warfare against the systemic redlining, urban decay, and aggressive corporate gentrification that had constantly displaced his people. It was the ultimate legacy move. T.I. realized that to truly win the game he had been playing since he was a teenager, he had to own the city, so the city could never own him again. This wasn't about simply generating another revenue stream. It was about rewriting the principal narrative of his entire existence. Let's physically unlock the vault and audit this shadow empire, brick by brick. We're looking at a highly weaponized real estate portfolio managed through a complex network of shell LLCs, primarily operating under his by Back the Block initiative and the Grand Hustle Real Estate Division. This is where the music money quietly mutated into generational infrastructure. Visual, a 3D topographical, glowing neon wireframe map of Atlanta's west side appears. Massive, metallic structural assets drop into the grid like titanium blocks, locking into place with heavy mechanical thuds. This is not a cosmetic flip or a simple coat of paint on a crumbling bando. We are talking about a 143-unit residential fortress built exactly where the notorious Bankhead Court's housing projects used to stand. The structural engineering involved pouring hundreds of tons of high-grade concrete and steel to construct a mixed-income sanctuary. It features 25 permanent supportive housing units specifically designed with wraparound mental health services and professional development centers for young adults aging out of the foster care system. The security protocol is absolute standard for a high-value asset in this area. It utilizes a closed-circuit, 4K digital surveillance web, fortified perimeter fencing, and fob access entry points to guarantee absolute safety for its residents. Mechanic B. Precise price point estimation. This specific principal investment required a verified $14 million in localized funding, federal grants, and private equity to break ground. But you have to look at the macroeconomic data. Factoring in the massive 2026 commercial appreciation of the Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway corridor, an area corporate developers are desperately trying to gentrify, this asset alone commands a current estimated market valuation sitting comfortably at $28 million. T.I. didn't just open a museum to flex his past, he secured the commercial footprint of an entire city block. The Trap Music Museum operates out of a highly fortified, retrofitted warehouse space spanning over 5,000 square feet. It is meticulously curated with authentic cultural artifacts, theatrical escape rooms engineered by elite set designers, and a hyper-realistic replica of a classic Atlanta trap kitchen. Adjacent to this intellectual property goldmine is the Trap City Cafe. This isn't a pop-up. It operates on a high-volume commercial kitchen infrastructure capable of pushing out over 500 covers a night, complete with a sprawling outdoor patio featuring custom-built, reinforced steel VIP cabanas. The aggressive acquisition of the commercial dirt and the strict zoning permits under these facilities required an estimated $3.5 million upfront capital expenditure. However, the operational cash flow is staggering. The museum averages over 5,000 visitors a weekend. At a base of $25 a ticket, that's $125,000 a week, or roughly $6.5 million annually in pure ticket revenue alone. Before even factoring in the cafe's premium liquor sales and VIP section minimums, the operational valuation of this single entertainment block sits at an easy $15 million. You cannot run a global syndicate without a secured headquarters. The Grand Hustle Complex is a bespoke, multi-level creative fortress. It houses 3 Class A recording studios floating on isolated concrete slabs to guarantee zero acoustic bleed. These rooms are outfitted with industry-standard solid-state logic, SSL, duality consoles, vintage Neumann U67 tube microphones, and custom Augsburger dual 15-inch main monitors that produce earth-shattering low-end frequencies. Beyond the audio engineering, it features executive negotiation suites, a private soundstage for podcasting, and a fortified underground parking matrix to protect high-profile guests. Mechanic B. Precise price point estimation securing commercial real estate of this magnitude in the heart of Atlanta's creative district, and outfitting it with millions in highly specialized acoustic treatment and audio hardware, places the base acquisition and renovation cost at approximately $4.2 million. With the current premium on turnkey Atlanta studio space, its replacement value sits firmly around $8 million. Behind the commercial plays, T.I. holds a sprawling network of heavily guarded luxury estates. His primary compound features Mediterranean-style architecture spread across over 10,000 square feet. It boasts a resort-style saltwater pool, dual-gated perimeter entrances with 24/7 biometric security scanners, and a 6-car motor court housing a fleet built for absolute protection and luxury. We're talking about custom Rolls-Royce Cullinans pushing 563 horsepower V12 engines, Mercedes Maybachs, and Level 6 armored Cadillac Escalades designed to withstand ballistic threats. Mechanic B. Precise price point estimation. His primary residence anchors this specific portfolio at $5 million. But a legacy move requires diversification. He controls at least a half-dozen other discrete properties held in blind trusts scattered across Buckhead, Alpharetta, and Jonesboro, adding another $12 million to the residential ledger. Combine that with a $5 million liquid vehicle and jewelry fleet, and his personal sanctuary assets clock in at a staggering $22 million. But let's pause the celebration right here. We are not in the business of deifying human beings, and this deserves to be told straight. No sugarcoating. The meticulous construction of a $100 million real estate and commercial empire does not erase the deeply complicated, often toxic residue of Clifford Harris Jr.'s past and present. You cannot discuss his ascent to becoming a civic leader and untouchable real estate mogul without acknowledging the sheer volume of controversy, litigation, and collateral damage that has shadowed his every move. He set the gold standard for Southern hustle, but he also left a trail of chaos that forces us to question the collateral cost of building a kingdom. While his pivot from the trap to legitimate real estate is objectively brilliant, it is constantly overshadowed by relentless legal entanglements navigating the weapon territory of the corporate business world. In 2018, the United States Securities and Exchange Commission formally charged T.I. in connection with a fraudulent cryptocurrency scheme known as the FLK ICO. This forced him to pay a massive $75,000 penalty and legally restricted him from participating in digital asset offerings. This wasn't a minor administrative slip-up. It was a reckless financial endorsement that cost everyday retail investors massive sums of their own hard-earned money. He leveraged his massive social media influence to push an unregistered offering to a loyal fan base that trusted his business acumen. It highlighted a dangerous blind spot where the relentless pursuit of capital and the desire to maximize every single revenue stream completely eclipsed ethical responsibility. And the courtroom battles never actually stop. They just change venues. T.I. is perpetually at war to defend his intellectual property. Take the grueling, multi-year corporate warfare against toy giant MGA Entertainment over the OMG Girls brand. In late 2024, T.I. and his wife, Tiny, secured a staggering $71.5 million jury verdict against the corporation for trade dress infringement. But in July 2025, federal judge James V. Selma aggressively slashed the $53.6 million punitive damages portion down to exactly $1, citing a lack of evidence for willful malice. The Harrises aggressively rejected the insulting reduction, refusing to settle for a single dollar in punitive damages and plunged themselves right back into another high-stakes, exhausting retrial. He is a man who demands absolute ownership, which means he is permanently locked in a cycle of corporate litigation. Then there is the intensely problematic personal sphere, which has deeply alienated large segments of his own audience and fractured his public image. His infamous 2019 podcast comments regarding his teenage daughter's gynecological hymen checks sparked a visceral, global backlash. It revealed a deeply archaic, intensely controlling psychological framework that starkly contradicts the progressive, community upliftment persona he pushes through his Buy Back the Block campaigns. Furthermore, beginning in 2021, T.I. and Tiny faced a barrage of horrific sexual abuse, drugging, and coercion allegations from multiple women. While the Los Angeles District Attorney ultimately declined to press criminal charges, citing the statute of limitations, and T.I. vehemently denied the accusations at every turn, the dark cloud of these severe allegations permanently stained his legacy. None of this excuses the actions, nor does it wipe the slate clean. The duality of T.I. is intensely jarring. He is simultaneously the ruthless, visionary businessman pouring millions into supportive housing for foster kids, and a deeply flawed celebrity whose need for absolute control has repeatedly landed him in the crosshairs of federal agencies, corporate judges, and the court of public opinion. The reality is that empires of this magnitude are rarely built with clean hands. To acquire an estimated $100 million in territorial control in a city as fiercely competitive and rapidly gentrifying as Atlanta requires a level of ruthlessness and ego that inevitably bleeds into every facet of a person's life. We must objectively look at the literal bricks he is laying to house his community, while simultaneously examining the wreckage he has left behind in his relentless pursuit of power. The truth doesn't cancel out the empire, but the empire certainly doesn't absolve the truth. Despite the intense chaos of his personal and legal life, T.I.'s ability to monetize his own mythology is an absolute masterclass in behavioral economics. Everything he has built, from the heavily fortified commercial museum blocks to the massive affordable housing complexes, operates as a highly sophisticated branding funnel. It is a 360-degree economy engineered to self-sustain, perpetually generating capital while simultaneously cementing his intellectual property. When T.I. violently claimed the title King of the South in the early 2000s, it wasn't just rap braggadocio, it was a hostile trademark acquisition. He positioned himself as the ultimate, unquestionable authority on the Atlanta street experience. Fast forward 2 decades, and the Trap Music Museum is the physical, architectural manifestation of that exact trademark. It's an interactive theme park for a lifestyle that was once deeply criminalized. By charging a premium for tourists to walk through a sanitized, highly aestheticized version of a trap house, he is literally selling the trauma of his youth back to the masses as high-end entertainment. This is a brilliant, airtight pipeline. A teenager visits the museum, buys a $65 branded hoodie from the gift shop, heads next door to Trap City Cafe to buy a $20 signature cocktail, and then goes home to stream the multi-platinum Paper Trail or Trap music albums. The physical real estate acts as a permanent, brick-and-mortar billboard that constantly drives traffic back to his digital footprint. Furthermore, every physical asset seamlessly integrates with his aesthetic evolution. The early extravagant flexes, curating matching yellow exotic cars to promote his yellow tape, mixtape era, or donning the massively iced-out grand hustle pieces, established the visual standard of Southern royalty. But as his assets matured, so did his corporate marketing strategy. He launched AKO, a king of oneself, and the Hustle Gang apparel lines, capturing millions in the urban streetwear market by offering high-margin garments to his loyal consumer base. He didn't just rap about hustling, he manufactured the exact uniform for it. Today, as he prepares to drop his 12th and allegedly final studio album. Aptly titled Kill the King in late 2026, the branding funnel has reached its ultimate philosophical conclusion. To kill the king is to transcend the rap persona entirely, moving out of the recording booth and permanently into the boardroom. He is aggressively pivoting into stand-up comedy with his independent cheaper than therapy special, expanding his podcasting network, and dominating reality television. These ventures do not exist in a vacuum. They feed the master machine. A new fan who watches the comedy special is immediately funneled to the podcast. The podcast promotes the museum. The museum generates the liquid capital to buy more affordable housing blocks in Center Hill, and those real estate acquisitions further validate the untouchable legend of the King of the South. He evolved from selling mixtapes out of the trunk of his car in Zone 1 to selling an entire cultural aesthetic to the global market. Every time a massive corporate developer attempts to build a luxury high-rise in Bankhead, they must negotiate around the commercial blocks T.I. already holds hostage. His physical real estate validates his rap persona, and his rap persona drives the massive economics of his real estate portfolio. It is a closed-loop system of perpetual cultural and financial dominance. The music was never just art. It was the ultimate top-of-funnel marketing strategy designed to fund the infrastructure of an untouchable shadow empire. So, how do we justify this massive nine-figure shadow monopoly? It is time to pull the exact receipts. In a culture obsessed with leased cars, temporary jewelry, and fraudulent flexes, we must audit the actual paper trail of Clifford Harris Jr. and calculate the precise, localized valuation of his empire as we look at the books in 2026. Visual. A sleek, matte black digital ledger appears on screen, glowing neon green numbers rapidly calculating with a crisp, heavy mechanical ticking sound, echoing like a bank vault locking. We start with the absolute anchor of his affordable housing initiative. Factoring in the structural completion of the 143 mixed-income units, the integrated commercial spaces, the critical wraparound mental health services infrastructure, and the exponential spike in Bankhead property dirt values driven by aggressive corporate gentrification, this specific asset holds a verified, premium market valuation of $28 million. You don't just value a cultural institution by its bricks, you value it by its ruthless cash flow. Based on a conservative 5x multiple of its staggering annual operational cash flow, remember, we're talking about roughly $6.5 million in pure ticket revenue alone, plus premium liquor sales, high-margin VIP section minimums, and exclusive merchandising, coupled with the underlying commercial dirt value in a rapidly evolving corridor. This highly fortified entertainment compound is strictly valued at $15 million. The customized, acoustically engineered commercial real estate housing his executive operations is a critical piece of the portfolio puzzle. Factoring in the millions spent on specialized isolation slabs, elite SSL mixing hardware, vintage Neumann microphones, private sound stages, and the heavily secured underground parking matrix in the heart of Atlanta's creative district, this operational fortress adds a solid $8 million. Beyond the finished structures, T.I. has quietly and aggressively acquired dozens of abandoned dirt lots, dilapidated commercial spaces, and distressed properties across Center Hill and the greater Bankhead area for future master development. Holding the deeds to the future of the West Side means holding ultimate leverage over incoming corporate developers. The aggregated raw land value of these unlisted parcels sits at approximately $12 million. We must aggregate the personal sanctuaries. His 10,000 square foot primary Mediterranean compound, combined with at least a half-dozen discrete luxury properties held in blind trusts scattered across Buckhead, Alpharetta, and Jonesboro, totals an estimated $17 million. When you combine those heavy residential assets with his rotating multi-million-dollar fleet of custom Rolls-Royce Cullinans, Level 6 armored Cadillac Escalades, and his hyper-expensive watch collection, this liquid tangible segment commands a valuation of $22 million. Finally, we must factor in the invisible, yet highly lucrative, digital real estate. T.I. has retained massive portions of his publishing, masters, and global licensing rights to a legendary catalog that features 3 Billboard Hot 100 #1 singles. Add in his ownership stakes in the AKO clothing syndicate and his expanding podcasting and independent comedy networks. In the modern streaming era, this intellectual property generates millions annually and carries a conservative baseline valuation of $25 million. When you aggregate the physical dirt, the cash-flowing operational businesses, the heavily fortified residential estates, the armored vehicle fleets, and the legendary intellectual property, T.I.'s empire effortlessly blows past the initial hook. We are looking at a highly calculated, meticulously structured $110 million in total asset valuation. This is not temporary rap money. This is permanent, multi-generational institutional wealth designed to outlast the industry itself. T.I. looked at a city systematically erasing its own history and realized the only way to survive the gentrification machine was to buy the machine itself. He achieved absolute financial freedom without apology, turning the dark memory of loss and street trauma into a permanent, physical legacy forged in concrete and steel. But he isn't the only mogul playing real-life Monopoly. Speaking of artists who see the world differently and weaponize their wealth to build untouchable empires, there's another video on this channel that goes deep on the terrifying billion-dollar shadow monopoly of Jay-Z. Click that video to see which artists are secretly buying up the world right now.